Here, y'all got your arms ready? Everybody got your arms ready? I gotta stand up. You gotta stand up. Oh, well, that's okay. All right. Y'all remember how this goes? Oh, boy, do I feel great. Woo! That was kind of quiet for Wednesday night. This is the last night of VBS. Are y'all excited for VBS? Yeah, that's much better. That's much better. All right, here we go. One more time. Let's see if we can do it a little bit louder this time. Oh, boy, do I feel great. Woo! That's the way we like it. That's the way we like it. All right. I think that we can have a seat for this one. This one we've been singing every night, and hopefully we know it by now. Oh, the time to be happy is now, and the place to be happy is here, and the way to be happy is to make others happy, and we'll have a little heaven down here. That's right. Can anybody remember what it was that we studied about last night at VBS? Samson, the strong man. That's right. So all of these lessons this week have been centered around something from the Olympics. And I wonder what we're going to study about tonight. The Olympics, Abraham, maybe. I don't know. We'll talk about it a little bit more as we go through here. But let's talk about Abraham for a minute. These youth group people requested that we sing this song, so they're going to help me out with this one. If you know Father Abraham, you got to stand up to sing this song too, right? That one kind of wore me out. I couldn't do the tongue out tonight. That was too much. All right, let's move on to our next song then. This is a good one. There was a wise old king. You guys know this one? Yeah, a wise old king. So here's how this one goes. Watch, and there may be some celebrities in this video that came back from some of the other videos, so let's watch it and see if we can figure out what we're supposed to learn from tonight's video.
Hello movie fans, I am Mary Carter. I am sitting here outside the Radiant Theater in Beverly Hills. Tonight, Taylor Swift will be hosting the 23rd annual Golden Star Awards. In just a minute, a few of our movie stars will be arriving. The red carpet has been rolled out for this evening, and the fans are truly excited. Let's take a minute before our stars arrive and see what our fans have to say. Me! Young lady, who are you here to catch a glimpse of tonight?
Brad Pitt. You dreamy. He's not if I get to him first. No.
He's not. Let's move on. Over here. Young man. Hi there. Tell our TV audience what you feel is the most exciting part of this night for you.
Well, I came all this way here from Tupelo, Mississippi to see none other than Jello. Oh!
2 hours later.
I see the first limo arriving now. Let's see who the first to arrive is. Here they come. I believe it is. Yes, I'm sure of it. It's Hillary Flood. Hi, Hillary. Thank you for stopping by our booth for a quick interview. Oh, sure. One question. I understand the Movie Actors Guide is raising money to help the people who lost everything in the recent tornadoes. And I understand that you have made a pledge. Can you tell us about it?
Sure. I want all my fans to know that I truly care for all the less fortunate, and I'm giving them $1,000 for rebuilding.
I hear some of the stars are actually going to the stricken area and lending a helping hand.
I'm sorry, I have to go. My fans need me too, you know.
2 hours later.
Well, okay, here comes another one of our movie stars. I believe I see Brad Pitt. Do you have time for a quick question?
Yeah, I guess.
What are your feelings about the tornado disasters and how do you plan to help?
What are you talking about?
The tornado disaster in the southeastern part of the United States.
I'm sure it was bad. I don't know. It's those people. They lost a lot. I guess. I don't know. Hey, I gotta run.
But Brad, what are you going to do to help in the relief effort?
Just see my agent. Talk to my agent.
Okay. Well, fans, I see our next star heading this way. I believe it is. Yes, I'm sure of it. I see those earrings. It's J-Lo, everyone. J-Lo, can I have 1 minute of your time, please?
Yeah, sure, darling. Do you want an autograph?
No. I'm very part with ET News. I just wanted to know if you were aware of the tornado relief efforts that some of the stars are coordinating.
Oh, sure, darling. I'm sending autographs down there next month once I start getting all the buildings back up.
And what else are you going to do to help these victims' families? I hear some of the stars are going to the area personally.
Oh, no, darling. I can't go down there. It would ruin my reputation and my fairly good heels. But I'm going to send $500,000 down there to help them rebuild.
Okay, thank you, Jello. Our next star to arrive appears to be Dale Gibson.
Woo! Let's go, Dale! Yeah! Woo!
Don't Gibson, you're my hero. It's okay. It's okay.
Mr. Gibson, could we have a word with you, please?
Well, sure. Just let me finish signing these autographs here.
Thank you.
Mr. Gibson, I understand that you are spearheading an effort to get many of the Hollywood stars together to reach out and provide the much-needed assistance for the survivors of the tornado disaster.
You know, that's right, Mary. Me, as well as many other people in Hollywood, actors, we make a whole lot of money. We're very blessed, and I just feel like it's the least I can do to donate a little bit of money back to people that don't have anything, that have gone through such a tragedy.
That is certainly commendable, Dale. What do you intend to do personally to help out?
Well, you know, I think what I'm going to do is take off 2 months from my directing career, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all the money from my last movie and donate it to those stricken areas to help rebuild hospitals and schools and to help anybody that's in need.
Thank you, Dale. I can tell that you truly care. It is certainly a breath of fresh air to see that someone in Hollywood has a giving heart and gives for the right reasons. We appreciate you stopping by to chat with us, Dale.
No problem. Thanks for the interview.
Well, everyone, it's time for me to move inside and set up backstage. Thanks for joining us on this edition of Entertainment News. I will be back tomorrow with interviews from all our winning actors. This is Mary Hart saying goodbye from the 23rd Annual Golden Star Awards.
All right, so in our show tonight, there were some movie stars that were showing up to that red carpet, and I don't know if you could hear or not, but in this story, the first 2 or 3 movie stars, they just kind of haphazardly, they didn't really care about the tragedy that was going on. There was people that had been hurt in a tornado and all these things that had been torn up, and they needed some money, and they kind of just passed them on by. But that last guy, he was a good guy, and he donated a lot of his money to help out those people. So our lesson tonight in VBS is about carrying the torch and what it means to carry the torch, what it means to be salt, and what it means to be light in the world. And we saw those other movie stars, they didn't really care that much. They weren't very sincere. But the last guy, he was pretty sincere with what he was doing. So that's what we need to do. We need to learn how to be sincere in doing our good works and the things that God tells us to do. All right, we've got a couple more songs here before we dismiss to our classes for tonight. This next one I think we've sung every night as well, one of my favorites. So y'all join in with me. Inky dinky dinky, inky dinky doo, God loves you. He loves you in the morning, He loves you at noon, He loves you at night too. Inky dinky dinky, inky dinky doo, God loves you. He do. Good job. All right, our next one was a request from several folks, and so I think that we're going to recruit some people to come down and help us with this. just a little bit, but before that, we're going to turn it over to Brother Terry for some announcements.
Yeah, I just need to make a few. Just a few announcements before Alan comes up, or before Adam comes up. Be sure and thank all the ones that have helped with VBS. They worked really, really hard. We had a good number Monday night and last night, even better number tonight. But this also kicks off our Wednesday night series, and we are glad to have Alan and Courtney and Everett with us, all the way from Savannah, Tennessee. But we thank him for being here to help us. A couple other things. Men's prayer breakfast in the morning at Austin's office over on Chisholm. Preppers Family Day this Saturday at 5 o'clock at the Creek. That's the way I understand it. Bring chips, drinks, and desserts. Ladies, Preppers Bible study starts Tuesday night at 6 o'clock. There's also a Kids Creek Day next Tuesday at the home of Bradley and April Strait. That's from 11 to 2 o'clock. If you have any questions, ask April in regards to that. We welcome a new baby to the Strait family. Tyler and Jessica are proud parents of a new daughter. Renly Faith Strait was born Monday. 7 pounds, 6 ounces, 21 inches long. The big brother is Hudson, and the big sister is Everly. And some really proud grandparents in Wade and Susie. Be sure and congratulate them. Be sure and look for Steve Lauderdale Jr. and Alyssa and Zach on Sunday. They place membership. Their address is on here. We want to extend our sympathy to the family of Dot Darby. Passed away, must have been Monday morning or Sunday. That service is tomorrow at Greenview at 2. Visitation is from 1 to 2. And also the baby sprinkle for Presley Abernathy. Those things are due by Sunday. Give those to Caitlin Creasy or put in Susie's office window. Joanne Kimbrell had some surgery today. I saw her just a little bit ago. She is in ICU, but everything went well. Please remember Joanne in your prayers. Hope you'll continue to remember mine and Marcia's sister-in-law, Kim McDonald. She had a procedure in Birmingham yesterday. Tuck Rhodes, Doris Staggs, Jimmy Staggs, Ethel Wode, and all the others that we have listed. I'm going to turn it over. Yes. Larry Liverett. Yeah. I do. Did not know that. Please remember the Liverett family. Okay.
Just a couple more, and then we'll go ahead and get Adam to come up and introduce our speaker tonight. If you parents that are in here, or if there's youth in here that are going on the mission trip, I really need to meet with you guys, or anybody that's still interested in going, back in the youth room in the back left corner over here right after VBS concludes tonight, to get some information, talk about just a few things. And then the last thing is that I was told if you're helping taking down VBS stuff tonight, please be extremely careful, because there's another sister congregation, I believe Jacksonburg or someone, that's wanting to use these things. So be ultra careful if you're helping take down things tonight as we prepare to move on from VBS. Thank you.
So I know that many of us here know Alan and Courtney Hooper. They were members here for several years, but then moved up to Savannah. Alan just finished completing his bachelor's degree from Heritage Christian University in May with his biblical studies degree, and so I'm hoping to see that in action tonight. And if he didn't learn good stuff, I'm going to report him back to the school. But he's also a captain there at the police department where he works. Does a lot of good things in the community there as well. Courtney teaches, and she's got summer school going on this summer, and a lot of good things that they're staying involved with and busy about. They work with the Savannah Church of Christ with the 5th and 6th grade ages. They do a lot of work and organize the education program and a lot of things for them as well. So very active in the congregation there, and we're really glad to have him tonight. Again, I've mentioned it, but we're excited to kick off this summer series. So every Wednesday this June, July, and August, we'll have a different villain from the Bible that we'll get the chance to dig into. And I thought it would be great to start with a law enforcement officer telling us about the bad guys. So I'm going to turn it over to Alan now.
All right. We see this picture up here. Has anybody ever seen this photo before? I know it's hard for you guys. This is a depiction of Hercules and the crossroads. So this is Hercules at the crossroads between vice and virtue. And tonight we're going to be talking about another famous, strong individual, and he meets this same crossroad. And I throw this up there really just for the visual. But when I think about this image, I really go to Romans 8 or Galatians 5 when you talk about the separation between the spirit and the flesh. That's where my mind goes when I think about vice and virtue. And so we're about to talk about another strong man. Greek mythology with Hercules, but we're going to talk about another strong man, Samson. We're looking at villains, and man, the more I look at Delilah and this whole story, I had to define what a villain was, and one definition that I've got was it's a character whose evil actions are important to the plot. And so when you think about Samson's whole story, and we'll be in Judges 13, 14, 15, and 16, but when you think about his whole story and you think about the villains that come up, think about that definition of how their actions play into the plot. But for me, it may be the same for you. We're going to talk some about the villains from the outside, but also the villains from within. Because you see, I can get away from somebody. I can shut my phone off. But I can't get away from what's between my ears. That's 24/7. And as I learn how to deal with post-traumatic stresses and I learn how to cope with those things, that's even more real to me. And so tonight, a lot of this is going to be dealing with the villains from within Samson. And then you'll start seeing the villains from the outside and how they affect this whole plot line. So that's where we're going to be, and that's kind of my approach to this topic. And hopefully it makes sense to you guys. That's how I planned it out. Samson's easily the strongest man in the Bible, but also in many ways he's the weakest. He was handpicked by God to lead his people, the Israelites, to revolt against the Philistines. We're going to talk about them some, who have been oppressing them without any resistance for 40 years. And so we're going to see flashes of his greatness, brief moments when we catch a glimpse of a hero that God intended him to be, but then for the most part, Samson's selfishness, this shallow-minded playboy that squandered his talents. And so a lot of times we as Christians see Samson or know him as he's the guy that messed with Delilah, or he's that really strong dude with long hair. You know, that's kind of how, when we think about Samson, that's how we think about him. But I've got a question for you. Would God have devoted 4 chapters, 96 verses to this if there wasn't something that we can learn from it? And so hopefully that we can take out of this, and I believe that Samson's story tells us and teaches us why we fail. And so let's take a walk down the dusty roads of Israel. Let's step into these marketplaces and these bloody battlefields of this ancient land. Let's listen to the secret conversations of these deadly enemies, the pillow talk of illicit lovers. Let us witness the weakness of a man and its shame, and the power of God and all of its glory. Before we do that, I know you guys need an update. All right? So before we do that, I'll just give you an update on what we've got going on. I'll start with an important one, Everett. I know, like many of you with young kids, when you go to grandma and granddad's house, they don't care about you anymore. They got to see that grandbaby. Adam just come from seeing his grandbaby not too long ago. So he is finished up kindergarten, about to go to 1st grade next year. We are just now learning what all-star baseball is like. So he's dragging tonight. We've been practicing for the last 2 nights. He's dragging, but he's doing great. I mean, he's 6, but as you can see, he's going on 16. You see his style? He dresses cooler than I do. He's got some cool clothes. Now, a lot of these clothes are hand-me-down clothes. We're blessed with people at church who are the kids that he looks up to, and they just kind of roll them downhill. But he goes in and he picks out his clothes, and he gets his fit check right. And then he steals all my hats, so I don't have any hats anymore, and he wears all my hats. But, man, he's doing great and having fun. So Courtney is, she's our Bible teacher at Love and Learn Preschool at the church at Savannah Church Christ, and she's, I don't have to tell you guys, you know how crafty and artsy she is and how much talent that she has. So she's killing it over there. She teaches several Bible classes a week, and Savannah's not very big, and so we go to the Walmart. We're going to know somebody, and they're going to run in and say, Miss Courtney, or Miss Bible, you know, they call her Miss Bible. And so everywhere we go, she gets recognized as being Miss Bible. So it's a good thing. We got a lot of good stuff going on. And then we have taken over recently the 5th and 6th grade. Our elders done a fantastic job of noticing. We've kind of dropped off with our Sprouts program, our little kids program. We kind of dropped off before they went to the youth group. And so they approached us. We picked that up, and it's going good. 5th and 6th grade, and so she helps me out a bunch with that, with her planning, with her crafts, with all of that. So I still am in law enforcement. He wanted to update, and I said, I tell everybody I'm a janitor. That's all I do. As you promote up in rank, you just throw another mop in the mop bucket because you got more messes you got to clean up. And so that's where I'm at. However, as I get up to the command staff, I do see it as I'm serving the people not only in my community but also in the department. So it's been fun, a lot of going on, but we're definitely blessed. And thank you so much for inviting us here tonight. It's always good to come back home. It's always good to see your faces. This is like home, you know. Not nervous at all to stand up in front of you guys. It's just like we're sitting at the table having a good conversation. So, and I hope it continues that way. So let's go on to the history behind what we're looking at. All right, like I said, God, he's fed up with the people. He's so disgusted with their disobedience that he decides he's going to hand them over to the Philistines. So he decides to raise up this strong man, as we know as Samson, and he's going to lead the people, the unrepentant people, out of bondage, and that's who Samson is going to be. However, if you look in Judges chapter 17, verse 6, you're going to see in those days Israel had no king, and everyone did as they saw fit. They're just running rampant. Everybody doing what they want to do. And so he calls or intends for Samson to elevate the mindset of the people. But unfortunately, instead of adopting it, instead of elevating it, Samson adopts this same mindset. And so this brings us to our first area, this first internal villain that affects the plot. And that's going to be a disregard for boundaries. And we're going to see in Numbers chapter 6 this Nazirite vow. These boundaries are everywhere, all right? If not the speed limit signs on your way to work, Cecil, it's a suggestion, right? If it's not the speed limit signs, it's your doctors telling you to stay away from certain foods, right? We've got boundaries that are being set, and that's just a fact of life. But we've got to admit, if we didn't have boundaries, we wouldn't be lasting long. We wouldn't live very long without them. They're designed to keep us on track and out of trouble. And so that's why God laid out some of these specific boundaries in Numbers chapter 6. And that's that Nazirite vow. That Nazirite vow, you'll see, let's stay away from a strong drink because that's unwise. Let's keep away from dead bodies. They're unclean. Don't cut your hair. That's unnecessary. And so Samson's life, it just didn't wake up one day and suddenly decide, I'm not going to do this Nazirite vow. He slipped gradually into a life of disobedience by making a series of really small compromises. You can't read that paper, but you see the headline there. On July the 6th, 1999, 27-year-old Daniel Dukes went to SeaWorld in Orlando. He gave every appearance of being an ordinary tourist, but he wasn't. At closing time, as all other guests were leaving, he ducked into a hiding place and stayed put until the park was empty. Sometime during the night, he made his way to the pool where a 5-ton killer whale named Tilikum was housed. He stripped down to his swimming trunks, folded his clothes neatly, and he jumped in. Nobody really knows for sure what happened next. Some believe the whale may have been startled by the man's sudden appearance, and in his fear he may have dove suddenly, creating a vortex that pulled the man under, rendering him helpless. Others believe that the whale thought that the man was a toy and dragged him around the pool for fun, keeping him underwater until he drowned. Either way, the next morning, Duke's body was found draped over Tilikum's back. It's kind of the perfect picture of the consequence of sin when we disregard boundaries. You see, we climb over fences not to wreak havoc or destruction. We climb over these fences just to have a little fun, right? We underestimate the danger, and we intend only to stay just for a little while, but sin grabs us with its teeth and it refuses to let us go. So at the end of Samson's life, what do we see him doing? At the end of Samson's life, we see him doing hard labor in a Philistine prison. He's blind, he's exhausted, he staggers around, he's bumping into things, he's falling down, they're laughing at him, he's amusing them. Now close your eyes and let that image sink in, that this strong man is now being humiliated. And that's probably the best picture we have of the destructive power of sin. Zephaniah says, I will search the lanterns in Jerusalem's darkest corners to find and punish those who sit contented in their sins, indifferent to the Lord, thinking he will do nothing at all to them. You know, I've sat there before. And that verse doesn't shake you. I'm not sure what's going to. Complacency kills. In my line of duty, in my line of work, we say that over and over again. Complacency kills. The next villain is a struggle with lust. You see, we've been wired to love. We live in a sexually promiscuous culture. We're used to getting kind of what we want. At times we're considered that prize catch by certain individuals of the opposite sex. And when we look at it that way, that can be a prescription for trouble. Samson's prowling around the streets of Timnah. All right, and we know that he's not prowling the streets of Timnah reciting the Ten Commandments. We know that he is not singing hymns because when his parents approach him about this girl, they say, they approach him about her spiritual heritage. Samson reacted harshly. In essence, he said, "Who cares that she's a pagan? She's hot. I want her." That's his mindset. And so he's never really fulfilled God's plan. He's carried this personal feud with these Philistines throughout his life, and he's killed an impressive number of them. But he was distracted, and he was distracted by a constant pursuit of sexual gratification. And so the Bible teaches us that it's the heart that needs to be concerned about. Proverbs 4:23, above all else, guard your heart, for it affects everything that you do. I wish Todd was here. I've hooked up with him some, and we go to some car shows. You're not going to paint that if it ain't running right. Now, he and I have a different view on things. We kind of like the rat rod. So the outside looks kind of rough, but under the hood it's nice, right? It's an inside-out restoration is what I'm saying. It's an inside-out restoration is what needs to happen. David, from Psalm 32, when I refused to confess my sins, I was weak and miserable, and I groaned all day long. Day and night, your hand of discipline was heavy on me. My strength evaporated like water in the summer heat. Now he looks within. Finally, I confessed all my sins to you and stopped trying to hide them. I said to myself, I will confess my rebellion to the Lord, and you forgave me. All my guilt is gone. Wow. All my guilt is gone. And that's a load off of your chest. Can you imagine? No more hiding, no more pretending, no more fear. And look at that last one. No more smiling as if you're on your way to heaven while feeling as though you're on your way to hell. Anybody ever felt that before? Yeah. It's an inside-out restoration process. You see, Samson also, this villain within, ignored some good advice. Fools think they need no advice, but the wise listen to others. See, good advice is like medicine. If you don't take it, it does you no good. It's useless. Now, let's call it pride, call it stubbornness. The fact is, we often are bound and determined to do things our own way, even if it results in a disaster. Jethro, in Exodus, he immediately saw a problem and offered some good advice. And Moses listened to his father-in-law and did everything he said. Now, I love my father-in-law, but I'm also hard-headed. So I might argue with him for a little bit. But Moses listened and done everything he said. The point is this: even the brightest and best among us occasionally need advice. And good advice only comes from good advisors. Listen to people who know and love God's word. Proverbs 2:6, the Lord grants wisdom, from his mouth come knowledge and understanding. Good advice comes from good people. Another villain from within that you see play out to the plot of Samson's story. He likes to break the rules. Judges 14, verse 6. The Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon him, so that he tore the lion apart with his bare hands, as he might have torn a young goat. But he neither, as he might tore a young goat, but he told neither his father nor his mother what he had done. What's going on here? I mean, this kind of seems out of the blue. I mean, Samson, we know, has a desire, has a lust that he's battling, and now all of a sudden, here comes this lion that he tears apart. The sun's shining, the birds are chirping. It doesn't say there's any good-looking women around for him to show out, but yet he still finds a way to sin. Samson's breaking the rules here. See, sinners from all walks of life, we're often inclined to stretch or bend and break the rules in little regard for the consequences. You see, the problem that Samson runs into comes back to that Nazirite vow. See, those rules were put there to keep us out of trouble. The Nazirite vow tells him that he shouldn't have any contact with a corpse. We talked about that earlier because that's unclean. So the honey he dips out of that lion's carcass is a no-go. Not to be touched. But so he knows full and well what the rules are. The problem is he decides he doesn't care. And he continues on. Scripture constantly tells us the importance of obedience. Happy are those who obey his decrees. Children, obey your parents. And these rules, they shape us into being better people. Children, they're extremely impressionable. You know, the point of us parents are not to spoil them or not to spoil their fun. The point is to mold and to shape them into decent human beings. I was telling Adam tonight, Everett would live off pizza and ice cream. Right? It's not healthy. That's not nutritious for him. But he's 6. That's what he thinks. That's what he needs. They're extremely impressionable. The military does the same thing with new recruits. You guys can see in that bottom corner. They take them and they strip them down. They remove all that they've known. And so now they look sharp. They speak with dignity. They demonstrate excellent manners and are posed with self-confidence. They look uniform. But the greatest example is seen in what God done in the Old Testament with his children. He established the 10 Commandments. He didn't want them to be like the pagans that surrounded them. He used this to set them apart and to make them different. And so all of life is a molding or shaping process. We're constantly having to learn. From the time we're born until the time we die, we constantly learn. I like Proverbs 1, verse 5. I write this in some graduation books and some things, but let the wise hear and increase in learning. You stop learning, you die, is what I think. As I can progress in my career, I'm constantly trying to learn. I like to read. I'm constantly developing different things on how to talk with people, how to interact with coworkers, how to learn their personality traits. And so we're constantly developing and we're constantly trying to learn. Yet at times it seems as though we're swamped with rules. But imagine how confusing life would be without them. The only way you can know how you're doing in any area of life is to consult with the appropriate rule book. My job, I stay within the rule book, right? The law dictates what I can and can't do. We call that the color of the law. How I decide on what charge needs to go, it has to fit that law. I have to consult the rule book to make sure that we're doing and we're abiding by what we should be doing. And so Samson knew the rules, and yet he decided to stay away from it. Another villain that Samson struggled with, he overestimates his own cleverness. Still in chapter 14, verses 10 and 11. Now his father went down to see a woman, and there Samson held a feast, as was customary for young men. When the people saw him, they chose 30 men to be his companions. You see, nobody ever really questioned Samson's intelligence. He's obviously a pretty bright guy, but there's times when he overestimates this cleverness. He throws this party, and it says that it's done according with the customs of the day. Now, 30 men are invited. You know as well as I do that when boys get together, the IQ tends to go down. And so they're essentially on this 7-day drinking fest. And this is supposed to be for a guy who's being held together with a Nazirite vow. Not very clever, not very smart. And see, his fatal mistake that we know is he underestimates these Philistines. He underestimates the groomsmen. Because what were they doing? They should be his rivals. They should be going against him. And so he underestimates them in every sense. And they wanted nothing more than to embarrass him. And they wanted to get after him. As we see there, Samson's wife gets to sobbing. You hate me. You don't really love me. You give my people a riddle and you haven't told me the answer. We know this story. She pressures him to tell him the riddle. And this is the girl from Timnah. So Samson now gets angry. It's another villain that we deal with. Anger. Anger is being used as a tool. Verses 18 and 19. Before the sun set on the 7th day, the men of the town said to him, what is sweeter than honey? What is stronger than a lion? Samson said to them, if you had not plowed with my heifer, you would not have solved my riddle. Pretty harsh words there. Then the Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon him, and he went down, struck down 30 of their men, stripped them of everything, and gave their clothes to those who had explained the riddle. Burning with anger, he returned to his father's home. Samson acted out in anger. This gives us a picture of rage, is what he done. Samson was in a fit of rage, and he was only mad because he's been made a fool of. He was embarrassed. He was humiliated. And so he's got a lust for rage. I think that brings up a point of analyzing our anger. You ever acted out in a fit of anger? Said something you didn't really mean just because of the moment? The first problem is that anger is addictive. It's just like a drug, and it gives us this adrenaline rush and a feeling of invincibility. You can't help but feel like a big tough guy. Then, secondly, as that anger grows, it has to intensify in order to maintain its effectiveness. You see, anger, when it's used as a tool, must be intensified in order to keep achieving the desired result. Hollering and screaming only lasts for so long. Then eventually people get used to it and tone it out. So the person, in order to get through, has got to one-up it. And we see this so much in domestic violence situations. One of the most dangerous things our officers can respond to. And so this fit of anger has to intensify from yelling and screaming to now it gets physical. And so that's what we see here with Samson. He's yelling and screaming, and now it gets physical. This third one kind of hurts me. Because I'm also the board president of a child advocacy center in town. And we work to make sure children get the help that they need from being physically or sexually abused. And so anger produces collateral damage. sad because little children hear every word. And they're sweet and they're innocent. And they're the collateral damage from most of our fits of anger. And so, as we analyze our anger, we see that sometimes we use that as a tool. Proverbs 29:11, a fool gives full vent to anger, but a wise person quietly holds it back. Samson then repeats the same mistakes. So we know we just finished the story of the girl in Timnah, and we're about to get to Delilah. And it sounds like, how many times does this guy have to screw up before he really gets it? How many times is he going to understand before he learns the lesson? And I find myself asking every time I read the story, like, wouldn't you think after this he would understand? Wouldn't you think after this disastrous marriage from this girl in Timnah, he would get it? He would see the light? But not Samson. He continually associates himself with the Philistines, with Philistine women, and more in particular. And eventually he allows Delilah to nag him, to reveal his secrets of his strength. Just like the girl from Timnah nagged him into revealing the answer to his riddle. I believe there's 4 reasons why. First reason, we are human. The first reason we are human, we make mistakes over and over again. Let's turn to Romans chapter 7. I like these verses because, like, man, they really, I feel like I've been there. If I do what I do not want to do, I agree that the law is good. As it is no longer I myself who do it, but it is sin living in me. For I know that good itself does not dwell in me, that is, in my sinful nature. For I have a desire to do what is good, but I cannot carry it out. For I do not do the good I want to do, but the evil I do not want to do, this I keep on doing. It's a struggle. It's a struggle. We've all been there. That's a real struggle that we deal with. Man, I know what I need to do. Samson knows he needs to stay away. Why is he still there? Why we keep going back, Samson? What's going on with you? The struggle's real. We're still human. The truth is, I should have known better. Second is blind spots. In other words, we have this weakness that we cannot see or recognize. And David acknowledges this in Psalm 139, 23 through 24. He says, "Search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my thoughts." I put this emphasis in there. Point out anything in me that offends you, and lead me along the path of everlasting life. I think that's why it's important to surround yourself. If we go back to good advice, if we go back to listening to people who know and love God's Word, they're going to help you find your blind spots. Anybody ever been in the military knows you can't back up a vehicle without having spotters, right? You got to have people on the ground to walk and direct you so you don't run over anybody. So they don't see your they see your blind spots that you can't see. You got to have somebody there in your life that's going to tell you, that's going to recognize, and that's going to be there for you. Nathan was that for David. Excuse me. Search me, O God, and know my heart. Third, we have unintended spiritual weaknesses. There's a striking phrase in Judges 15, verse 1. Go back. Later on, make sure I'm there. Yeah, later on, at the time of the wheat harvest, Samson took a young goat and went to visit his wife, and he says, "I'm going to my wife's room but the father would not let him go in. I think we know what his intent here is. He intends to go in and sleep with her. Of course, that's his only motivation for marrying her in the first place. I mean, obviously, he hasn't changed to this point. He hasn't learned. He's repeated the same mistake, and nothing's changed. And we see Samson's weakness, this unintended spiritual weakness that he may have a blind spot to. Is obviously he's not recognizing this, is in the area of sexuality. Then it leads to what many have struggled with, is too much pride. And so he was concerned with saving face, and his pride was wounded more than his body. And so Samson, as many of us, struggle with a big ego. It's another villain that comes out that affects the story, that affects our plot, that affects the end game. It's too much pride, a big ego. Chapter 15, Samson said, with a donkey's jawbone I've made donkeys of them. With a donkey's jawbone I've killed thousands of men. What's the problem with that little riddle he come up with? Yeah. I don't see God's name in there at one bit. If only he'd fallen on his face and acknowledged the Lord's hand in his victory. If only he felt compelled to thank God for sparing his life. But instead, he composed a poem. Look at me. Look at all my accomplishments. He composed a poem that speaks volumes about his character. With a jawbone, look what I've done. Without God's help, we know Samson would have been killed. His poem contains not a word about God, not one acknowledgement, not one word of gratitude. He takes all the glory. There was a survey done a few years ago in which Christians were asked to rate a variety of sins according to their seriousness. Guess what? Pride doesn't even make the list. Didn't even make the top 10. I think that's because people tend to see pride more as an annoyance, right? Somebody being proud of something that just annoys you. But we don't see it as a true problem. It's a struggle, and it's a full-blown sin. Scripture tells us, Proverbs 16:5, the Lord detests all the proud of heart. Haughty eyes and a proud heart produce sin. I'll put an end to the arrogance of the haughty and will humble the pride of the ruthless. See, I'm against you, you arrogant one. The arrogant one will stumble and fall. On the pedestal of pride, there is an absence of heartfelt worship. This is one of the most striking things about Samson's life. He was handpicked by God, raised by righteous people who loved the Lord, and shaped his fortunate years according to a Nazirite vow. Yet not once do we see any indication that he had a meaningful devotional life. Samson never really devotes his life to the Lord. And the reason proud people rarely worship is because worship is an act of humility. It's hard for them to swallow that ego. Brent, I think I'll always remember a class he put on. Exalt God only or edge God out. And so humility, if we look